Isang mapagpalang araw po sa ating lahat. Kami po ang pangkatwalo at bago tayo dumako sa ating diskusyon, kami po ay may hinandang palaro at tatawagin natin tong Name That Tune. Kami po ay magpapatugtog ng mga kanta at huhulaan nyo lamang po ang titulo o ang title ng papatugtogin naming kanta. And this is the first song.
My little monkey, Humpty Dumpty.
DJ Jan Sumano Remix.
At kung 5 little monkey ang sagot mo, that's correct. And here's the next song. At alam na alam nyo ang sagot. At kung selos nga ang sagot nyo, that's correct. And here's our next song.
Guided by the grip of your hand, I can feel you holding my world. Ano ba itong nadarama? Oh shucks, ito ba'y pag-ibig na? Totoo ba ang pinagama? Cause boy, it feels so good. Bawat aroma sumasaya, magmula nang nakita ka. Nawawala ng pangangamba, pag ika'y kapiling na. Feels like someone I'm with you, parang islang pantropiko. Can't wait to go back with you, sa islang.
Mukhang TikTokers ang bawat isa at kung pantropiko nga ang sagot nyo, that is correct. And here's our next song.
Oh, kalma. Baby, kalma. Huwag mo naman akong bigyan ng dahilan para tabihan ka. Kalma. Pwede ka bang kumalma? Isang ngiti pa sa akin lalapitan, talaga kita.
At kung lagabog nga ang sagot mo, that is correct. And here's our next song.
Hanggang kailan kaya ako maghihintay? Hanggang sa mapansin mo na ang lihim na pagsinta. Siguro pag ako'y maganda na, siguro pag ako'y naging siya, di ko na kailangan pang magsulat nitong kanta. Ngunit mga tipo mo'y mestiza na chinita, habang ako'y morenang dalagang Pilipina. Tignan mo naman ako sa mga mata mo, huwag kang kumaripas ng takbo.
At kung Maria Clara nga ang sagot mo, that is correct.
This boy got a hit.
Every day bagong city, yeah. Di na broke cause we made it, yeah. Di na naka-Honda Civic, yeah. Here we live, nasa top, naka-spaceship. physical lang. Kala nila sa'kin wala na kung bakit. Pero
At kung we made it nga ang sagot mo, that is correct! And this is our last song.
Bakit ba ako laging ganito? Lagi akong di mo pinapansin. Para na lang akong laging sumusunod sa gusto mo. Lagi kitang inaalala kahit di mo ako pansin. Honey, my love, so sweet. Kahit ako'y di mo pinapansin, hindi ako nagagalit sa'yo. Pagkat alam ko na ang iyong damdamin para sa'kin. Hindi mo lang alam ang aking nadarama pagkapiling ka.
At kung honey, my love so sweet nga ang sagot mo, that is correct! Thank you for all your participation, everyone. At mukhang nagising na nga namin ang inyong mga natutulog na puso. Cheers! Ang inyong mga natutulog na isipan, kaya naman, let's start our discussion. Isang mapagpalang araw po sa ating lahat. Magandang umaga, sir. Magandang umaga sa aming mga kamag-aral. Kami po ang pangkatwalo na ilalahad ang utilitarian ethics. These are the reporters, Ms. Maria Celine O. Topican, me, Mr. Alan Lloyd V. Aguilar, and Ms. Princess Esquera, na nagsasabing, piliin po nating maging mabuti dahil ang pagiging mabuti, wala po yang bayad, ngunit may sukli. Here are the objectives. First, explain what utilitarianism is. Second, explain how utilitarianism considers the greatest good for the greatest number. Third, provide a clear examples to make the concept understandable to a wide audience. And lastly, highlight the focus on maximizing overall happiness or well-being.
Utilitarian ethics can sometimes lead to dilemma because it focuses on maximizing overall happiness or well-being, which might mean sacrificing the happiness of a few for the greater good. For those who will be watching our video presentation, and to our classmates, kindly take your time in putting yourself in this situation. Imagine you are riding in a trolley, a kind of tram or streetcar without functioning brakes, headed toward the switch in the tracks. On the current track, 5 people are standing and will be killed if the trolley continue on its path. You have access to a switch that would divert the trolley to a side track, but there's one person standing on that track who would be killed if the switch is activated. What will you do? Do you switch tracks, killing one person but saving the lives of the 5 people on the main track? Or you will do nothing, allowing the trolley to continue on its course and killing the 5 people on the main track? We have asked some of our classmates to put themselves in this situation, and this is some of their answers. According to Alexa, sigurado na lang sa isa lang yung taong nasa truck, pero if kaya ma-slow down yung train hanggang sa mahinto bago makarating dun sa tao, ay yung gagawin hanggat maaari. According naman kay Eman, ipupull ko yung switch, may mamamatay pa rin either ways, but lesser dun pag pinul ko. Sabi nga sa Centro Mall, save more. And according naman to Mariel, papahintuin ko na lang yung trolley para walang mamatay. According to Atasha, in my own opinion, I would choose siguro to switch tracks, as it seems to result in the least harm overall. Pero it's still a complex ethical decision, since it involves weighing the value of individual lives against each other. Base nga sa mga past lesson natin, may nasabi si Sir na if both good yung dilemma or scenario, mas piliin natin yung pinaka-better and pinaka-magbe-benefit. Kasi for me, kaya ako nasabi dahil makakasave ako ng 5 people. And I know na parang mas marami silang magagawa. Compare sa makapatay ako ng 5, di ba parang mas masakit or mas nakaka-guilty? And last, according to Nestle, but if I will be in that situation, I will choose to switch tracks, killing 1 person but saving 5 lives. Masama man isipin na pinili ko pa rin may mamatay, but that's the dilemma. You need to choose between the two hardest situations. Mas okay nang makapatay ng isa kaysa 5. Hindi man mapapalitan yung buhay pero masasave mo naman yung buhay ng 5 tao sa kabilang daan. Sabi nga nila kanina, ang hirap daw. So ikaw, kung ikaw yung nasa situation, ano yung gagawin mo? Will you switch the tracks or wala kang gagawin? Hahayaan mo lang na mamatay yung 5 tao? For those who are wondering about utilitarian ethics or utilitarianism, let's start first by understanding who Jeremy Bentham, John Stuart Mill, and their contribution in utilitarian ethics. At first, who is Jeremy Bentham? Jeremy Bentham began studying history and Latin at the age of 3, and at the age of 8, he entered Westminster School but immediately left because it was reg. Then went on to study at Queen's College, Oxford, where he earned his Bachelor of Arts degree. And to follow his father's wish, he entered Lincoln's Inn to train for a career in the legal profession. But in the same year, he returned to Oxford to attend William Blackstone's lectures on the law. This is a very significant event in his life because as he listened to the lectures, he was able to immediately detect Blackstone's fallacies on natural rights, which led him to reject the theory of natural rights as theoretical nonsense. Jeremy Bentham was far more interested in the philosophical foundation of ethics, morality, and legal theory than in what he previously studied, which is the law. He was influenced by the philosophy of John Locke and David Hume, and later on he published a book in which entitled Introduction to the Principles of Moral Legislation in 1789. And for those who are wondering, this is the start of his name in the field of philosophy. As he says, nature has placed mankind under the governance of 2 sovereign masters, the pain and pleasure. It was his idea that what provides for the morality of an action is the consequences of such act. Example, if the action is pleasurable, then it can be considered good, and if it will bring pain, then it is considered to be morally unacceptable. Sinasabi rito ni Bentham na dapat muna natin consider yung pleasure or consequences ng mga bagay bago natin ito gawin. Sinasabi rin ng principle na ito ba ay para sa nakararami or hindi. Sinasuggest ng principle na ito na piliin natin yung action na magre-result ng happiness ng nakararami. And in addition, Bentham's utilitarianism also aims to liberate people from unjust laws and create a moral foundation for democratic societies. And he says that freedom is not absolute and should be exercised with consideration for its impact on others. So, dapat yung freedom natin, hindi lang tayo dapat padalos-dalos sa mga actions natin kasi nga, may epekto yun sa paligid natin. So, freedom is always accompanied by responsibility. Dapat maging responsable tayo sa mga ginagawa natin. Bentham believed that it is necessary to take measures to avert the potential emergence of a greater harm or evil. And who is John Stuart Mill? John's father played a significant role in shaping his early life by providing him with a rigorous home education. At the age of 3, he began studying Greek and was able to read Greek authors in their original language before he turned 7. By the age of 8, he had already started reading Plato's major work, as well as studying Latin, Euclid, and algebra. He was subjected to an extensive reading program, and every morning he would have to give his father an account of what he had read the previous day. John Stuart Mill's intellectual development, which was heavily influenced by his father, and had a significant impact on his emotional development as a child. He lost the typical playfulness, emotions, and friendship of childhood, and later he wrote that, "I was never a boy," and he also wrote, "Through the training bestowed on me by my father, I started, I must fairly say, with an advantage of a quarter of a century over my contemporaries." When John Stuart Mill reached the age of 20, he suffered from emotional exhaustion, which he traced back to an excessive focus on analysis without a corresponding growth in emotional aspects such as feelings. To recover from this emotional burnout, he delved into the literary works of Samuel Taylor. He was elected to the Thomas Carlyle and William Wordsworth. He advocated for various social and political reforms, the cultivation of the feelings for the rights of exploited black people or Negroes in Jamaica, pushed for the reforms to enfranchise the working class in England, and supported the redistribution of land in Ireland. Mill's involvement in politics was a reflection of his utilitarian beliefs, which emphasize the importance of maximizing happiness and minimizing sufferings for the greatest number of people. Throughout his life, Mill was dedicated to promoting human happiness and alleviating human suffering.
Now, let's proceed to the definition of utilitarianism. Utilitarianism is an ethical theory founded by Jeremy Bentham and developed and popularized by John Stuart Mill. As the term suggests, utilitarianism is founded in the principle of utility, which adheres to the belief that an act is good or morally right if it promotes happiness, and bad or immoral if it tends to produce pain. The key, therefore, in utilitarianism is the principle of happiness. Hence, again, in utilitarianism, an act is good or morally right if it produces greatest happiness to the greatest number of people, and bad or immoral if it produces more harm or pain than benefits or happiness to the greatest number of people. This explains why the utilitarian would not care whether an action is done out of deception, lie, or manipulation as long as it produces maximum benefits to many people. For example, the act of condemning a terrorist to death is morally right for the utilitarian because this action produces equal benefits or greatest happiness to the greatest number of people concerned. Okay, let us take the famous case of Robin Hood as it's well known. Robin Hood steals property from the wealthy people and give them to the poor. From the vantage point of Christian ethics, Robin Hood's act is immoral because it deprived the wealthy people of the right that is due to them. However, from the vantage point of utilitarian, Robin Hood's act is morally good because it produces maximum benefits that is greatest happiness to the majority of people. Utilitarian principles. Utilitarianism suggests that the moral worth of an action is determined by its consequences. The primary goal is to achieve the greatest good for the greatest number of individuals. Also, it emphasizes the importance of considering the long-term effects and consequences of action on all affected parties. So, consider a scenario where a pharmaceutical company must decide whether to lower the price of a life-saving drug, potentially reducing their profits but making it more accessible to those in need. So, on utilitarian analysis would involve evaluating the potential impact on overall happiness, including the increased access to the drug for patients versus the potential financial strain on the company. In this case, utilitarianism would weigh the benefits of increased access to the drug against the potential drawbacks, such as reduced profits for the company. So the decision would be guided by the principle of maximizing overall happiness or well-being, which may lead to the conclusion that lowering the price is morally preferable action if it results in a net increase in utility. Jeremy Bentham's model of utilitarianism. How does Bentham view happiness? Well, for Bentham, happiness is simply the absence of pain. And so, Bentham introduced the philosophic calculus to measure the degree of happiness or pleasure that a specific action may produce. The philosophic calculus is also called the utility calculus or hedonistic calculus. It includes intensity, duration, certainty, propinquity, fecundity, purity, and extent. And so, for Bentham, the intense or intensity, the pleasure, the better. The longer or duration it lasts, the better. The more certain or certainty that it will happen, the better. The closer or propinquity that it will occur, the better. The greater the possibility or fecundity that it will be followed by another pleasure, the better. The purer or purity the pleasure, the better. The greater the number of people that it will benefits or extend, the better. The formula of Bentham's philosophic calculus goes like this. Happiness less pain is equal to balance. For Bentham, the balance is the basis of the morality of an action. In other words, for Bentham, if the balance is in favor of happiness, then the act is morally right. And if it is in favor of pain, then it is morally wrong. Bentham said that we just need to sum up all the pleasures and pains produces by the action. If the balance is in favor of bliss, then the act is morally right. But if the balance is in favor of pain, then the action is morally wrong. So let's us put it in simple mathematical calculation. If an act produces 12 pleasures and 6 pains, then the balance is 6, which in favor of pleasure or happiness. Hence, if this is the case, then for Bentham, the action is morally right. However, if the act produces 5 pleasure and 20 pains, the balance is 15, which is in favor of pain. If this is the case, then for Bentham, the act is morally wrong. Now, let's proceed to the John Stuart Mill's model of utilitarianism. It is important to know that Mill disagrees with Bentham. Mill argues that we cannot calculate the amount of pleasure or pain that an act produces. For Mill, the philosophic calculus cannot be the basis of morality, but the majority of the people that attains happiness. Thus, the famous utilitarian claim is an act is morally right if it produces greatest happiness to the greatest number of people, and it is morally wrong if it produces more pain than pleasure to the greatest number of people concerned. As we can see, Mill's utilitarianism is considered qualitative since the philosopher emphasizes intellectual pleasure than sensual pleasure. This is his famous saying goes, it is better to be Socrates dissatisfied than a pig satisfied.
Utilitarianism and rule of utilitarianism. What is the difference between act and rule of utilitarianism? One key difference between act and rule of utilitarianism is their approach to decision-making. Act utilitarianism evaluates each action individually, while rule utilitarianism considers the consequences of following general rules of principles. Act utilitarianism allows for flexibility in decision-making, as actions are judged based on their specific outcomes in each situation, while rule utilitarianism provides a more structured approach by advocating for adherence to established rules or principles. Both act and rule utilitarianism share the goal of maximizing overall happiness or well-being, but they differ in their methods of achieving this goal. Act utilitarianism prioritizes the consequences of individual actions, while rule utilitarianism emphasizes the importance of following rules or principles that promote the greatest net utility. The choice between act and rule utilitarianism may depend on factors such as the complexity of the decision-making process and the potential for unintended consequences. Let us take again as an example the act of condemning terrorists to death, and so an act utilitarian will ask the question: what possible good or evil results from this act? If the majority of the people are benefited by the act itself, then it is moral. A rule utilitarian, on the other hand, will ask whether there is a rule or law that condemns terrorists to death, and whether this rule was formulated based on the utility principle. If this is the case, then it may be morally right to sentence a terrorist to death. Now, let us all proceed the benevolent spectator principle. The benevolent spectator principle is a concept within utilitarian ethics that suggests individuals should make decisions as if they were impartial. Benevolent spectators aiming to maximize overall happiness or well-being without bias toward their own interests or circumstances. The benevolent spectator principle is a key aspect of utilitarian ethics, emphasizing the importance of making decisions from a position of impartiality and benevolence. According to this principle, individuals should strive to make choices that maximize overall happiness or well-being as if they were impartial observers concerned with the welfare of all sentient beings, rather than being influenced by personal biases or interests. The benevolent spectator principle is a foundational concept within utilitarian ethics, guiding individuals to make decisions based on impartiality and benevolence. Let's consider a scenario where a government must decide on the allocation of limited resources for healthcare, balancing the needs of different demographic groups. Applying the benevolent spectator principle would involve making decisions based on what will benefit society as a whole, rather than favoring specific groups or individuals. Utilizing the benevolent spectator principle in the healthcare allocation scenario will involve evaluating the potential impact of different allocation strategies on overall well-being. Decisions will be made with the goal of maximizing overall happiness or well-being for the entire population without privileging the interests of any particular group. The benevolent spectator principle underscores the importance of impartiality and benevolence in ethical decision-making. By adopting the perspective of a benevolent spectator, individuals can strive to make choices that promote the greatest good for the greatest number, regardless of personal biases or interests. However, applying this principle in practice may present challenges, as individuals must actively work to overcome their own biases and consider the diverse needs of all affected parties.
Critic on utilitarianism. Number 1. Is it true that sacrificing a few individuals or causing discomfort to some is acceptable if it leads to greater overall happiness for the majority? And this is our answer. In the philosophical framework of utilitarianism, it can be acceptable to sacrifice a minority or an individual if such action results in a greater benefit for the majority, upholding the core principle of maximizing overall happiness. Question number 2 state that is it ever morally justifiable to engage in immoral actions if they benefit the majority of the people? Our answer is, according to utilitarianism, it can be morally justifiable to carry out immoral acts if they result in the greatest balance of good over harm for the majority of people, as this theory judges the morality of an action based on its consequences. Utilitarianism is a theory that holds that the morality of an action is determined by its outcome. If an action leads to the greatest overall of happiness or good, then it is considered morally right, even if the action itself is typically considered immoral. For example, ipinangongopya tapos para naman sa lahat yun and mag-benefit yung ibang tao, pwede siya considered as morally acceptable kahit na immoral yung act dahil magbe-benefit naman yung karamihan. This means that a society which everybody acts from evil or immoral motives can still be morally acceptable as long as it would benefit the many. However, it is important to note that determining the overall goodness of an action's outcome can be complex and controversial, as it involves evaluating and comparing various forms of happiness or good, and predicting all the consequences of an action. The last question states that what about the rights of the minority? Our answer is, this can lead to concerns about the potential for oppression and discrimination against minority groups. In utilitarianism, as they say, no individual is inherently more important than another, as the morality of an action is determined by its overall outcome, and the balance of happiness or good it produces for all beings, not just the majority or minority. The well-being of every individual matters, regardless of whether they belong to the majority or the minority. The goal in utilitarianism is to maximize overall happiness and minimize overall suffering for all affected parties.
So now, after we discuss the utilitarian ethics, these are the following questions. First, what is the main principle of utilitarian ethics? Second, how does utilitarianism define what is morally right or wrong? Third, explain the concept of the greatest good for the greatest number in utilitarian ethics. Fourth, how do you evaluate consequences in utilitarian ethics? And lastly, how does utilitarian ethics differ from other ethical theories like Kantianism or virtue ethics? And here's our conclusion. Utilitarian ethics, pioneered by Jeremy Bentham and expounded upon by John Stuart Mill, posits that the moral worth of an action is determined by its utility or usefulness in maximizing happiness or pleasure and minimizing suffering or pain for the greatest number of people. Bentham introduced the principle of utility as the foundation of ethics, advocating for the quantification of pleasure and pain to calculate the greatest happiness for the greatest number. John Stuart Mill, on the other hand, emphasized qualitative distinctions in pleasures and the importance of individual rights within the framework of utilitarianism. Both models emphasize the importance of considering the consequences of actions and promoting the overall well-being of society, making utilitarian ethics a compelling approach to ethical decision-making. Thank you so much for listening our discussion, everyone. The utilitarian ethics. God bless you all and ingat always. Once again, we are the group number 8. And for those who needs our PowerPoint presentation, we will send to our GC and we will flash again the PowerPoint presentation.